For those who grew up in Britain during the 60s and 70s, this food needs no introduction. It was on the table after a long shift, packed into school lunches, or eaten quietly at night when money was tight, but hunger wasn't. We laughed at it, complained about it, and later learned to feel slightly embarrassed by it. Before we go on, remember to like this video and subscribe if these flavors belong to your past, or if you're curious about a Britain you never knew. Because what if the foods we were told to avoid were never the problem at all? 1. Ready brek, central heating for kids. By the early 1970s, ready brek had become a familiar sight in British cupboards, especially in colder northern towns where winter mornings felt endless. First sold in the late 1950s, it truly took off during the 70s with the slogan, "Central heating for kids," a promise that spoke directly to families without modern heating. Mothers stirred the fine oat flakes slowly into full-fat milk, watching steam rise as kitchens warmed, fortified with vitamins and paired with calcium-rich milk. It provided slow-release energy that lasted through the school morning. By 1973, over 20 million packs were sold each year, often costing around 12p a box. Compared with today's sugar-heavy cereals, ready brek was simple, filling, and quietly nourishing. 2. Twiglets, the bitter crunch of the 1970s. Twiglets were never meant to be pretty. Introduced in 1970 by Jacobs, their knobbly shape and bitter Marmite flavor divided children instantly. Some pulled faces after the first bite. Others reached straight back into the packet. Unlike most snacks, Twiglets were baked, not fried, and made from wholemeal flour that retained fibre lost in white bread. By the mid-1970s, they were a standard sight in pubs, corner shops, and school lunchboxes. They were cheap, filling, and oddly adult. Compared with modern crisps, fried in seed oils, and dusted with flavourings, Twiglets were closer to proper food than their packaging suggested. 3. Pilchards in tomato sauce, the oily tin that fed inland Britain. For many inland towns, fresh fish was a luxury. Pilchards in tomato sauce filled the gap. Processed in Cornish canneries throughout the 1960s and 70s, over 30,000 tons were packed each year and shipped across the country. At around 10p a tin, they were cheaper than cod and provided protein, vitamin D, and calcium from their soft, edible bones. Some loved the rich smell when the tin was opened. Others avoided the kitchen entirely. Served on toast or stuffed into jacket potatoes, the sharp tomato sauce balanced the strong flavour. Compared to today's bulked fish products, the pilchard tin was honest, oily, and real. 4. Marmite on toast, love it or hate it. Few foods divided Britain like Marmite. By the 1970s, more than 15 million jars were sold each year, despite its famously bitter taste. Made from yeast extract, it was packed with B vitamins, including folate, long before nutrition labels became fashionable. Doctors often recommended it to pregnant women and those suffering fatigue. A thin scrape on buttered toast was enough. It woke you up faster than sugary cereal ever could. While children today spread chocolate and palm oil on bread, Marmite remained sharp, savoury, and nutritionally dense. Unfashionable perhaps, but far from junk. 5. Fish fingers and peas, a freezer staple of working Britain. By the mid-1970s, fish fingers had earned a place on British dinner tables, thanks to Captain Birdseye's reassuring adverts. Parents trusted what lay beneath the breadcrumbs. Inside were sticks of cod or haddock, frozen quickly and served with peas, often boiled until soft, but still rich in fibre and vitamin C. By 1975, Birdseye controlled nearly half of the frozen fish market, with children eating fish fingers twice a week on average. A box cost under 30p, putting fish within reach of families watching every penny. Compared with today's shaped, filler-heavy freezer foods, the originals were surprisingly straightforward and nourishing.
6. Heinz baked beans on toast, the nation's quiet constant. In 1970s Britain, few meals were as common as baked beans on toast. Often dismissed as lazy cooking, it was in fact one of the most reliable sources of everyday nutrition. A single tin delivered protein, iron, and fibre, with the tomato sauce adding a modest boost of vitamins. National Food Survey records show beans appearing in over 80% of British homes each week, eaten on average 4 nights out of 7. At around 10p a tin in the early 70s. It fed families for less than the cost of a packet of crisps today. While modern microwave meals promise convenience, beans on toast offered warmth, fullness, and honesty on a plate. 7. Scotch eggs, picnic food with substance. Scotch eggs were rarely glamorous, wrapped in cling film, stacked on butcher counters, or packed for long car journeys. They were bought out of necessity rather than excitement, yet inside the breadcrumb coating sat a whole boiled egg, rich in protein and vitamins, wrapped in sausage meat that added heft and flavour. In 1973, a Scotch egg cost around 15p, cheaper than many chocolate bars, and far more filling. Families relied on them for picnics, work lunches, and late suppers. Compared with today's reform snacks, bulked with starch, the Scotch egg was messy, heavy, and undeniably real food. 8. Smoked kippers, the smell that lingered.
Smoked kippers announced themselves before they were ever seen. Their oily aroma filled kitchens, clung to curtains, and sparked complaints that lasted all morning. Yet they were one of the cheapest ways to put fish on the table. In 1972, 2 kippers cost under 10p, far less than fresh cod. Working-class households consume nearly 8 ounces of smoked fish per person each week, according to survey records.
Rich in vitamin D and B12, kippers were filling and sustaining, even if no one spoke in nutritional terms. Strong-smelling, certainly, but deeply nourishing. 9. Peanut butter, after-school energy. Peanut butter arrived quietly in British kitchens, but stayed for good reason. By the early 1970s, jars sat open on worktops, spoons plunged straight in by impatient children. It was messy, sticky, and clung stubbornly to the roof of the mouth. Yet it delivered protein, fibre, and dense energy that carried children through long afternoons. A jar cost around 18p and rarely lasted long once opened. Most brands contained little more than roasted peanuts and salt. Compared to today's sugar-laden spreads, peanut butter offered simple nourishment disguised as a treat. 10. Black pudding, fuel for heavy work. Black pudding divided breakfast tables across Britain. Some loved the rich smell as it fried. Others pushed the plate away without tasting. But for working men in factories, mines, and docks, it was fuel. Packed with iron and B vitamins, a thick slice delivered the energy needed for physically demanding shifts. In 1972, it cost around 12p a pound, far cheaper than steak and far more sustaining. Families might have called it junk, but compared with today's filler-heavy sausages, black pudding was dense, traditional, and honest. 11. Dairylea cheese, silver foil, and soft comfort.
Dairylea triangles were instantly recognizable by their shiny foil wrappers, fiddly to open and often leaving scraps of silver stuck to small fingers. Parents tended to dismiss them as processed nonsense, something bought for convenience rather than value. Yet each soft triangle contained real dairy, delivering calcium and protein that growing children needed. Sold for around 12p a pack in the early 1970s, they were cheaper and longer lasting than fresh cheese.
Spread onto bread, crackers, or oatcakes, they became a quiet staple of lunchboxes across Britain. Compared with today's reformulated cheese snacks, Dairyly offered simple nourishment, wrapped in nostalgia. 12. Corned beef hash, stretching the week's pay. When wages were tight, tins of corned beef appeared on the table. The pink block slid out with its unmistakable smell, sliced and fried with onions and potatoes to make corned beef hash.
By the early 1970s, over 60% of working-class households used corned beef weekly, according to National Food Survey figures. Imported mainly from Argentina and Australia, more than 200,000 tons arrived each year. A tin cost around 2 shillings, providing protein-heavy meals that fed families for days. Unlike many modern tinned meats, it contained little more than beef, salt, and seasoning, plain, dependable, and filling. 13. Pickled eggs from the chippy jar. They sat quietly in glass jars on chip shop counters, floating in vinegar, daring children to try one. Pickled eggs were cheap, practical, and surprisingly sustaining. For a few pence, you got a whole egg packed with complete protein, preserved naturally without additives. Miners, dockers, and shift workers often grabbed one alongside their supper. The sharp vinegar cut through grease and hunger alike. Today, supermarket protein pots sell the same promise at triple the price.
The chippy jar offered nothing new, just honest food doing its job. 14. Pork scratchings, the pub snack. Nobody questioned. Behind the bar, pork scratchings rattled in tiny bags, hard, salty, and sometimes sharp enough to chip a tooth. They were never sold as health food, but they were little more than fried pork skin and salt, with no flour, no flavourings, and no pretense. At around 5p a bag in the mid-1970s, they were cheaper than crisps and often more filling.
Packed with protein, they paired naturally with a pint. Compared with today's neon-dusted pub snacks, scratchings were rough, simple, and closer to the butcher's block than the factory. 15. Shipham's fish paste, the school sandwich filler. Shipham's fish paste was rarely centre stage. It lived at the back of cupboards, brought out to fill school sandwiches when money needed stretching. For a few pennies, a small jar of salmon or tuna paste could cover half a loaf.
Factories in Chichester produce millions of jars each year to meet demand. The paste delivered real fish protein and small amounts of omega-3, even if no one spoke in those terms. Compared with today's starch-thickened sandwich fillers, it looked plain, but it fed children reliably, quietly, and without fuss. Looking back, these foods tell a larger story than labels ever could.
They were never designed to be fashionable, photographed, or praised. Yet they sustained households through cold mornings, long shifts, and tight pay packets across Britain. What was once dismissed as junk was often simple, honest nourishment, rooted in routine, thrift, and everyday life. If this journey through Britain's kitchens has stirred memories, you can click to watch more videos exploring forgotten UK brands, places, and everyday favourites from the 1950s to the 1980s.
Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment sharing which of these foods you remember most, or which one surprised you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again in the next film.